And good evening to all. You've entered the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And guess what time it is? It's time for new comics, bitches! Yay! Okay, that was my Kermit the Frog impression. Sorry. I just got finished watching this last week's another fucking phenomenal episode of The Walking Dead. And wow, that show is actually, I mean, it's grown in leaps and bounds from its first season. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about actual comics and not shows made out of comics. So let's move forward. I'm going to start with certainly the most controversial issue of this week, and it is one of the better ones of this week. There was a lot that came out this week. Most of it good, some of it, and some of it fucking fantastic. So this borders more towards the fucking fantastic, but it's so important that I'm not going to leave it till near the end, where I do leave most of my other good stuff, and that is Fear Itself 7.1. Okay, so this is obviously the first of three issues that's stretching out of the Fear Itself event, which I didn't care for, if you couldn't tell by me just sticking my tongue out. But this gave us something really, really cool. I do have some problems with it. Well, really only one. But, okay. Breaking it down. If I'm spoiling anybody, or if I'm spoiling this for anybody, that means that you haven't read it and you don't know what's going on, or you haven't, been following Ed Brubaker on Twitter or anything like that. So, here it is. Obviously, in the events of Fear Itself, we saw the Bucky Captain America die. Well, we thought we did, anyway. That's what 7.1 is here to tell us. This is not, bring him back from the dead using supernatural forces type of thing. Well, maybe a little bit. Not supernatural, certainly. But basically what we've got here is we've got Bucky, barely alive after his fight with Sin, or whatever she was called when she was Skartaris, I think it was. Anyway, and in very typical Brubaker fashion, because he wrote this issue and it was illustrated by, I think, Butch Geis, he works his magic and he makes this work. Because at first, when we were reintroduced to Bucky as the Winter Soldier, that he hadn't been dead, that was one of, a lot of people said, especially Alex Ross, the great, awesome, brilliant illustrator that he is, sometimes has, a bit of an impulse control problem, I think. And he's, he said that the two, untenable deaths in the Marvel universe, anyway, were Uncle Ben, Ben Parker, and Bucky Barnes. You can't undo those. Well, he undid Bucky's death, but he did it in a way that was so smart and so dramatic that it worked. It worked better than it actually would have if Bucky had just stayed dead. We got introduced to this great new character who eventually became Captain America when Steve seemed to be lost to the world, and was for a time, certainly. And Brubaker, every single issue of Captain America that Brubaker's done has pretty much been incredible. I think even more so when he was actually doing it with Bucky, when Bucky was a big part of it, I should say. Because the Winter Soldier arc, obviously going into, when Bucky, after Cap died and when Bucky became Captain America, this was all stuff of just genius. So with Bucky gone, it felt like there was just something now missing from Brubaker's stuff. So he did what any smart comic book writer would have done, and he said, you know what, let's make him, let's bring him back, but not have him, I should say, not have him die. So basically, he is sequestered in secret to, an unknown location in which Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, basically say to themselves, look, we can't have, if he's going to die, then he's going to die. But we kind of needed this so that we could get Steve Rogers back as Cap, which is why during, Bucky's whole, going into, becoming Captain America, and then, of course, being shipped off to the Gulag in Russia, and all that fun stuff that Bucky went through, that Nick might need an out, because Nick is very pragmatic. Sometimes a little too pragmatic, especially as we see in the beatdown of this issue that he gets at the hands of Steve Rogers. Yeah, fuck it. So basically, Nick works up a life model decoy of Bucky and stages him as the dead soldier. As the, basically this Bucky is, that Bucky is dead, and he gets to start essentially with a clean slate. Again, what is, what I basically thought about Bucky's death when I read it was that it was too, I lamented it because I desperately wanted to see a Winter Soldier series. Something either of his time as the Winter Soldier, something to that effect. We were introduced to some of that, the framework of some of that in the last issue of Captain America and Bucky, but I wanted to see Brubaker more specifically tackle this subject. And sometimes wishes do come true, because this whole 7.1 is a big setup for the Winter Soldier series. So basically, Bucky is going to have his own series as the Winter Soldier, but it's more going to be about the Winter Soldier cleaning up his messes, the things that he, the awful things that he did when he was the Winter Soldier, rather than it exploring the actual Winter Soldier years. And that's going to be left up, I think, to Captain America and Bucky. That comic is going to cover some of that ground. So what I really also appreciated about this issue is that it didn't seem like this was just something that, Brubaker, and, Matt Fraction and all of the Marvel architects just kind of pulled out of their ass. It's like, well, no, Bucky's not really dead. The only guy that really dies is Thor. And even, how long is that going to last? There's some real repercussions for characters in the future, because what they do to help save Bucky, what Nick does, what Nick gives up for him, is he gives him the last, basically the last bits of the Infinity Formula, the thing that's keeping Nick alive and somewhat young. So he's sacrificing, he's almost sacrificing his own life to save Bucky. So, I mean, that's something incredibly altruistic coming from Nick Fury, who is, like I said, at his core, he's a pragmatist, and he's someone who's very kind of coldly logical and, has this very kind of, laser-focused approach to all the threats that are coming at him. So, I mean, this is, again, my only problem with this book was that it seemed to come too soon. This was almost like, if this had been like the third issue of The Fear itself, if this had been like 7.3, or even something that happened, I feel that it just came a little too soon. But I mean, I think that Ed's in a hurry to get this new series out there, for Bucky and the Winter Soldier, and basically, it looks like it's going to be, just a, if it stays true to Brubaker form, it will be fantastic. So, you know, hats off to Brubaker and Marvel for pulling off another, you know, kind of impossible stunt and making it work on every level, emotionally, physically. It just works, and intellectually. So, okay, so we're gonna do some indie comics now. Hellraiser #6. Obviously, if you're reading this comic, you have to be somewhat familiar with the films and not just the Hellbound Heart story, because you know Kirsty Cotton in this, you know, is very much, you know, she's very much like, you know, she looks like Ashley Lawrence, who played Kirsty in the two, at least the two films that she was in that I know of. The only two films of the Hellraiser series that I've seen, which are the first one, obviously, and Hellbound Hellraiser 2. And I actually think that Hellraiser 2 is actually superior in quality to the first one. But, and part of that's just because of like the landscape, the architecture that they actually give to Hell. It just seems to work better. And, you know, it's kind of gross and, you know, kind of erotic, which is what, you know, Clive is so good at. But it introduced this character of Tiffany, who is, you know, this kind of, she almost seems like she's autistic. You know, she's a girl who is brilliant at solving puzzles. So she's given the, you know, the lament configuration, and she does open up, essentially, hell. And here she is in the comic now. And she's looking kind of goth girl, you know, but what she's really been doing for these past several years, it seems like, is she's been going around pallying up to the two men who would buy Le Marchand's designs, basically pieces of his puzzle, and assassinating them, because she is trying at every cost, you know, at any cost, to stop another of the Le Marchand configuration boxes to come to life, you know, to come to, you know, physical reality. So I mean, it's, you know, it's a cool character transition, you know, much in the way that, you know, which is basically what this whole book seems to be about, is about character transitions. Even the character of Pinhead is going through a transition, and especially in this particular issue, we're given, you know, another character transition of Kirsty. She is basically going, you know, she wants Tiffany to open the box so that Kirsty can enter it and control hell, but destroy it through her love, and also be with the people that she's lost. So, I mean, there isn't, you know, there are selfish reasons that she's doing it, but she's also doing it because she believes very strongly that this will work. So that's exactly what happens. She goes in, Tiffany destroys the box behind her, and prays that Kirsty will be able to do whatever she can do to stop, you know, the Cenobites, you know, from ever coming back out again. So what's in store for this book, I don't know, but I mean, it's fascinating. I think it only has another 2 issues, which makes it, because I think they said it's only going to be an 8-issue series. I hope that it's longer, because this seems like it's a lot of build up, and to only have it pay off in the course of 2 issues, I think it's just too short. So I'm also going to touch on the comic Heart, which is by Blair Butler, who was, you know, she's part of, I believe she was part of Attack of the Show on G4. You know, she's a big, you know, comic geek, but she's also very much into mixed martial arts, you know, MMA and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan. I, you know, heard a lot of interesting things about this issue, so I read it, and I can say I honestly don't care. This is something that, you know, it's an interesting and gritty approach to this kind of tale, but it just seems like it's a tale that's been told way, way too often, and to me, it does nothing new. It shows me nothing new. So I feel kind of bad about that. I thought they were going to do something interesting with this concept, but ultimately, it's just kind of dull. So there's not really much to say about it. Art's good, though. Anyway, stay tuned for part 2, because we got a lot of ground to cover. So stay tuned.